So, ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the next agenda for today, the business agenda. The speakers are going to share their thoughts and discuss on the topic, Rethinking and Revitalising Future-Ready Economies.
Let us welcome the speakers, Ms. Christy Ng, founder of Christy Ng Sendirian Berhad.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, for this agenda, I think it will be quite interesting. Alright, so let us see the insight and also the sharing from our speakers. And next, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Chow Sang-ho, Consulting Managing Partner of Ernst & Young.
Mr. Rais Imran, Chief Strategy Officer of UEN Agenda Berhad.
And Mr. Wilson Bay, Co-Founder of Policy Street.
And our moderator for the session, Mr. Andrew Lim Jong Wen, Head of Change Lab of Payments Network Malaysia. Over to you, Mr. Lim.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, distinguished panelists. It's a great honor that we are invited here on the stage, right? Maybe before we go into business, right, let me just introduce our panelists today, right? So, Christine, right? Who here? No, let me not ask that. So, she is a passionate and resourceful female entrepreneur. I think just now we mentioned about diversity, right? So, Christine is a resourceful female entrepreneur. Imagine starting a business from living room to now a global e-commerce platform where you have a store with over 8 million monthly page view. Right? Give it up for Miss Christine. Right? On the left, we have Chow. Right? Chow is the partner in Ernst & Young. Right? He was previously the regional leader, right? He has been involved in across different national digital transformation work, and Chow has been a prominent figure in this space. Let's give it up for Chow. Right? Then we have Mr. Rais Imran, right? Chief Strategy Officer at UEM Magenta. Right, he is one of the accomplished finance and strategy senior executive with a lot of years of experience, right, in business development, M&A fundraising, research and technology management. Right? He's been flying across the world, and I think in South America and Middle East. Right, so give it up for Mr. Rais Imran. Last but not least, Wilson Bay, right? Co-founder of Policy Street, a leading insurance tech company licensed under Labuan FSA as well as Bank Negara Malaysia. Right, he's also the president of FAOM, FinTech Association of Malaysia. Give it up for Wilson. All right, I'm going old school here, right? I have iPads and also my papers. Right. Let me start with this, right? I think COVID-19, right, has actually disrupted a lot of supply chains. Right? COVID-19 has fueled a lot of uncertainties in the industry and market. And it has also changed how you and me, myself, in every different aspect of our life. How supply chains can now deliver things, how you make your payments. All these are very different nowadays, right? And in crisis, right, and in the Chinese word, 危机, that means when there is crisis, that means there's challenges, and there's also opportunity, right? 危 is challenge, 机 is opportunity. So maybe to get into things, right, to set the context, maybe I'll start with Christy, right? What did your business look like before the pandemic, and then how things have changed and evolved after the pandemic?
I think COVID has literally accelerated. It catalyzed our e-commerce growth. And at first, it was very uncertain. Because we're omni-channel. I mean, we're multi-channel. We have physical stores as well as e-commerce. So because all the physical stores had to be closed and we were not able to operate at time, so we thought that the business would be very badly impacted. But it went the opposite way. I think we had like 400% to 500% growth in e-commerce sales, just because everywhere was closed. So like you said, in every crisis there's opportunity. So I think we were very lucky to be able to seize that opportunity during COVID, and that really took and because the numbers surged really quick. we have different types of problems, to manage to scale and stuff like that. But
that's all your customers are maybe.
Yeah. So the question was COVID, right? So I think every 10 years there will be different sort of crisis and different sort of problems. So I think the best is to not put all your eggs in one basket. Like, I think for us, we don't depend fully on e-commerce. We also have retail. We have stores in major malls in the country. It's old school, but it's proven. It's it's proven, and it's a workable business model. And we also do B2B. We do a lot of merchandising for a lot of corporates, a lot of multinationals. So we don't put all our eggs in one basket. So in case COVID happened again, touch wood, we have to close. We still have e-commerce. We have our corporate orders going on where we manufacture for other brands and other companies. So I think, did I answer your question?
You did. Right. So I think from your perspective, it's more omni-channel presence, and it's important to have in-store as well as online kind of presence. Maybe I'll throw the ball to Wilson, right? Wilson. So fintech, right? Policy Street, right? How does business change, right? Pre and post pandemic, right? On your side.
Yeah. First of all, thank you to the organizer of the Youth Economic Forum for inviting me. It's a privilege to be here. Roughly about 10 years back, I was there, admiring the panelists and speakers on the stage who kind of also influenced my career decision-making pathway. So, Policy Street, we are an insurtech company, and it has changed tremendously pre and post-COVID. And I still could recall the fateful day. If you could recall, in March 2020, I think our former Prime Minister announced the lockdown on Sunday evening. And on Monday, Policy Street, we called a town hall, company-wide, brought in everyone to the company in Cyberjaya then, and to tell them, look, we are heading into a crisis mode. Because no one could predict what would unfold in the next couple of months. Because COVID was unprecedented. It was a global, and it still is a global healthcare pandemic. But what Policy Street has done in a way was we kind of harness on the uncertain moments and capture the opportunities. And in the past 2 years, during COVID lockdown, during the pandemic, the company has grown tremendously. And I would say that we are quite lucky in the sense that insurance industry or insurance technology is one of the verticals which get benefited from a pandemic crisis like this. Before I talk about Policy Street, I just take a step back on the macro level, right? The global investment into insurance tech, which is one of the key verticals under fintech, has reached all-time high to about $15 billion last year. Even this year, during the climate winter, the fundraising still reached about $5 billion. So for Policy Street, pre-COVID, we were still just an online platform website selling simple, affordable insurance. But today we look completely differently. We pivoted and refined our business model in empowering and enabling ecosystem who requires insurance solutions the most. So we are very focused in the B2B2C, which is the embedded insurance pillar. Today we power the gig workers companies such as Foodpanda. All their 50,000-60,000 gig workers are insured through Policy Street. Same goes to Shopee Food Riders, and we also power up with a lot more other tech companies. But what I wanted to answer the question, during the past 2 years in COVID, in a way, was a growth phase for Policy Street. It was difficult. I still remember in May 2020, we started our fundraising through equity crowdfunding. I'm not sure about if you are familiar with ECF. In the past, before COVID, ECF was done in a nice hotel setting. You know, you serve nice food and trying to win the hearts of your potential investors. We were the first company who went completely online, virtual, to do book building. Zoom call, you can't serve the nicest coffee to your potential investor. But we stuck on, we went on, and in 2020, Policy Street became the largest issuer in Malaysia after getting investment from 274 angel investors, both from Malaysia and also from the region. And last year, in the end of 2021, we onboarded a few other regional VCs, namely Gobi Partners, who runs and owns 10 unicorns. And to me, I think, going back to what the model has said, right, crisis is also an avenue for opportunities. And I think what Policy Street has done is really harness on the opportunities during crisis time like COVID.
Thank you. So it seems like COVID, the two businesses have grown tremendously, right? So that's good news, right? So maybe I'll turn the stage to Mr. Rais, right? I mean, now, UEM Magenta, huge corporation, right? During the pandemic, how do you then be agile enough, right, to actually adapt to that sudden change, right? I mean, startups, SMEs, MSMEs, you can make that pivot quite quickly, right? But from a UEM Magenta perspective, what are the different things that you are doing to actually make that pivot?
Thanks, Andrew. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good afternoon. Thank you, first of all, to the Perdana Fellow Alumni Association for inviting me, and also the best team panelists here today. Interesting question. I think we've heard from Christy, we've heard from Wilson on sort of the kind of brick and mortar business moving into sort of more traditional, I would say more innovative, sort of online and digital presence type of experience. Now, if you kind of relate that back to UEM Magenta, I would say it was a significant and intense pressure during the COVID, because traditionally, if you look at businesses in the asset management as well as infrastructure solution, which is the business that we're in, it's predominantly driven by brick and mortar, people, and relationship with assets, right? So anything from maintenance of assets, buildings like this, to maintenance of hospitals, maintenance of recreational facilities, golf courses, and you have businesses across, Malaysia, Singapore, Taiwan, the UAE, as well as the Saudi. What we found very interesting was, taking a global view and then coming down to the business specific, right? One was that markets behave completely differently during ups and down cycles. Now, whether it's pandemic, whether it's macroeconomic driven, or whether it is customer shifts, they all behave differently. So we saw businesses and policymakers shifting in different sets of directions with regards to addressing the pandemic. Singapore, for example, were very much ahead in terms of propagating businesses to continue to remain resilient during the pandemic, and as a result had come out with a lot of grants to support businesses that were suffering. In the UAE, if you know, the UAE only closed their borders practically for only 2 weeks for the entire 2 years, right? And it was constantly still very much a thriving market even during the pandemic. And as a result, businesses continue to operate as business as usual, and it was obviously on a lot more, I would say, controlled setting, but it was a lot more different, and there, I would say the impact of our business was much, much lesser than what we expected. Now in Malaysia, I think we support a large ecosystem of infrastructure and assets. So we support, hospitals with government hospitals, over 60 hospitals in the north, plus in Sabah and Sarawak. We support the entire infrastructure that connects people from the north to south by maintaining, the Plus Highway. We also do a lot of work in terms of buildings and properties, where we have to continue to upkeep these assets, thinking enough that initially it was going to be a short-term sort of pandemic, ended up being a 2-year pandemic, right? So So that had greatly impacted the business during the, I would say, onset of the pandemic. Now, what we had to do to remain resilient was practically think about ways where we can continue to support our client during these challenging times. And if you take hospitals, we are a very strong partner with Ministry of Health. And what we've done during the pandemic is to, of course, we had hospitals overloaded with patients, COVID patients, as well as increasing costs that we saw by virtue of PPE or by virtue of people working overtime, which you saw during the pandemic, right? Now, how do we effectively support the clients in ensuring that we can alleviate their pressure points, right? And I think this is one thing that innovation helps quite a bit, especially in thinking about solution that you can deploy in a speed and agile manner. One of the things that we did at a very onset was to support Ministry of Health in terms of building a crisis prevention recovery center, the CPRCs, which was the start of the pandemic. This is sort of like a data center to be able to kind of monitor where the impact and the preparedness and the emergency response that was required by the government. Second, we then pivoted to be able to look at how we support MOH by addressing the influx of patients that were coming in because there were not enough sort of, ICUs to be able to handle critical care patients, right? So then we went into the idea of finding a solution that we can then build a hybrid ICU, which took less than 20 days to build, that had additional capacity of 10 to 20 beds. So those were speed and agility, and that I think was very important in response to the pandemic, right? Now, there were many things that we did, but I just would like to kind of fast forward now to where we live today. I guess we learned a lot, and speed and agility continues to become a very important ingredient in business success today still. But one thing for sure in this current environment, and I think Cha will also be able to elaborate a little bit this from clients that you meet and as well as converse on, the challenges today are quite distinctly different than what the challenges were just at the onset of the pandemic. Today, I think we've heard about Datuk Sri Tengku Zafrul talking about we are in unprecedented times, not only faced by global uncertainties resulting from the Ukraine crisis, the war that we saw, the inflation, the changes in interest rates that affects the macroeconomic fundamentals of businesses. But on the other hand, we are also impacted by shifts in business trends, from whether it is the climate change and the path to net zero and what companies are doing to achieve that, whether it is the global talent resource mobility and the ability to attract resource, whether it is about the shifting customer demands and how customers are moving along, and whether or not technology is something that you can play along the edge of competitiveness. So without going into the details, I think businesses are now stuck in this sort of dilemma of how do I balance between the macroeconomic uncertainty and at the same time the shift in the market environment in addressing what is years to come. And I'd like to go back to your point, Andre. It's not for companies to sit and wait and look at how the situations pan out. It's for companies to prepare today to mitigate those risks, but at the same time find opportune ways to take advantage of to get ahead of the curve.
So just to build on Rai's point, right? Chao, maybe I think now let's not sit and wait, right? Businesses should not be sitting and wait, right? So maybe from your perspective, doing business in the digital age, right? You have been looking at digital transformation at a national level, right? And as well as a regional level. What are your thoughts on this? And how should business start having that foresight, looking at challenges and opportunities, not sit and wait, but know what is a good time to actually take some of those opportunities? Your thoughts on that?
Sure. But first of all, I want to say thank you to Perdana Fellows Alumni Association for organizing this, and for you all for staying back at 3:30 in the afternoon on a Saturday. But nowhere else to go. No shopping, buy shoes from Christie. But anyway, let me give you some statistics, right? Because you've heard from two of my panelists, our fellow panelists, Christie and Wilson. They are the exceptional one. Let me give you some statistics, right? From the SME Association, Small Medium Enterprise Association, in Malaysia, there's 1.15, if you've got pen, you can write down, 1.15 million small medium enterprises, 1.15. 1.15 million represents 97% of Malaysian businesses. 97%. And the 97% employs about 7 million, 7.3 million Malaysians or employees, and that makes up about 50% of people who are working. And they contribute about 40%, 38% of the GDP. But when I had a conversation with the SME Association president about maybe 6 months ago, 15 to 20%, his guess, of those SMEs have closed. Tutup. Lingkup. Of course, he said, but Chow, I'm not sure whether they close permanently or close temporarily, because they might come back, you know. But my point is this. What you've heard from Wilson and Christy, to me, are exceptional stories. They're not the ordinary stories. So what I've learned, and I hope you've learned, maybe 3 things that as I was listening to them. Number 1, you need to be on digital, you know. I mean, the reason why your e-commerce survived, Christy, I mean, your business survived, e-commerce, and yours too, right, Wilson? So, and I've seen that too in my own clients. There are those who are still struggling to even spell the word digital transformation, and some of them goes to the board of directors, and the board of directors shoot it down because they don't understand. They continue to struggle. But I like your point about the ICU, because we were also working with MOH and MINDEF actually. So my colleague Ideal is here, we work with MINDEF. And the struggle with pandemic was having ICUs because the crisis then. And we needed to be agile and resilient. So thank you to you and Magenta for helping on that. So number 1, if you're not on digital, to me, your days are numbered. Number 2, if I can also suggest to you, learn from Wilson. I was talking to him just now. Wilson, you were a banker before. Banker became an entrepreneur in a digital era. What it tells me is that you can be agile, look for opportunity, and grab it. And number 3, if you don't mind me saying this, maybe about 20 years, 15 years ago, there's a saying that says like this: when paradigm shifts, everything goes back to zero. When mindset, when situations shift, all bets are off. And I like what Wilson and Chris, you did, you know. When the market shifted to more, because of pandemic, to more digital, they capitalized on the opportunity. So to me, I think I'm too old for that era. You are the young ones. And I'm just want to encourage you, when paradigm shifts, everything goes back to zero. You have an opportunity to be like Christy and Wilson. So those are my points. Thanks.
Those are very good points, right? I mean, maybe we dive a little bit deeper, right? I mean, digital. You need to digitalize your business. We are going to Wilson first, right? Wilson. So now business is in the digital space. What are the potential challenges, right? As you start to, I mean, you might start off your business digitally, right? But what are typical challenges that you would foresee, or for some of the SMEs, MSMEs would face, right, as you go into digital transformation, right? The second part to that question is, how do you then make sure that you innovate new things, but also at the same time manage your costs, right? Because startups, MSME, right? Do I want to, what should I do?
Sure. I think to run a successful digital transformation, or to adopt the digital DNA in any organization, it has to boil down to first principle. First principle in the sense of, what are the problems you are solving? What are the values you are giving to your target audience, regardless whichever organization you are in? And use digital tools as enablers to help expedite the process, or help streamline the process to be more efficient. So for Policy Street, our mantra is, yes, we go out to call ourselves as an insurance technology company, a fintech company. You notice the word fintech. The word finance comes first before technology. Of course, there's also a flip side of story, right? Today people are talking about tech fin. For us, we believe in the sequential arrangement of financial technology. So we first look into the problems for Malaysia and also the emerging markets in Southeast Asia. When it comes to insurance, what are the problems? Why is the life insurance penetration rate in Malaysia has still been hovering at around 55%? Why is the employee insurance penetration rate has been stagnant at about 40%, according to a study by Liam? And why is that close to 85% of SMEs, if you were to refer to a report by AIG in 2019, 85% of SMEs, they are underinsured. This is due to insurance industry has not been very effective. They are laden with so many pain points, inefficiencies, yet it is a highly lucrative one, right? So for Policy Street, we take a step back to think about, in terms of our model, how can we make the entire process of getting protected? In fact, I rarely use the word insurance, right? Because there's also a negative perception when it comes to insurance. It's really about protection, to create a safety net when an unfortunate circumstance takes place. How are we able to develop the right solutions, the right model, the right user experience to make sure that our target segment, which is the SMEs, the underserved market, the gig workers, the middle class, are able to get protected in an efficient, delightful, and simple manner? And that has been the question that we have been asking ourselves. And the digitalization is just an answer as we piece the puzzle together. And case in point, 3 days ago we launched a digital HR portal specifically for the SMEs out there. As you know, once your organization has grown to a certain stage, you will acquire or obtain employee benefits, group medical scheme for your employees. If you don't do that, your employees will come and complain to you, hey, where's my medical form of coverage? You should pay it for me because I'm an employee. But for the longest time, there are a lot of problems. The employee benefits process is very traditional. HR has to key in all the Excel sheet, send the latest employee listing via email, WhatsApp, and there will be a lot of arguments because the insurer may argue that, look, this is not your latest employee listing. Especially recently, there has been a lot of retrenchment, right? And there's no one-stop center to look at all your policy details, all your claims data. So these are all the real tangible pain points that we are experiencing, we are seeing, and our digital HR portal is designed entirely to solve all these pain points. So what I want to bring about to you to answer the question is that digitalization is just the answer to the problems that you need to solve. And I believe that in every organization, in different capacity, from running the largest infrastructure, from connecting north to south, to running one of the leading consulting giants in the world, to running one of the most well-known retail brands in the country, there are different problems. Digitalization is just a tool, it's just an enabler to help you to solve the problem easier. And that, to me, would be the key success to how SMEs and the organizations out there are able to adopt digitalization to be better. It's not just to go to the boardroom to say, look, boss, now we can call ourselves as a digital company. That will burn you a lot more cash without achieving your business. Thank you.
I just wanted to add to the point. It is very true, and it is the ability for digitalization to make you realize how to solve a problem, but more importantly, how to solve a problem with an enhanced data-centric decision model, right? You now are making decisions on a real-time basis based on data that you know. So there's two things, right? One, you get more data. Two, with data, you make better decisions and faster decisions. What used to take 1 week, 2 weeks to gather information, for example, in the case of Agenta, in managing highways or hospitals, by the time the information gets from the facility managers of the hospital to the corporate center to the decision maker to make that decision now takes hardly a minute. The ability for that decision to be made correctly has also increased tremendously, because now you're basing decision not against judgmental evidence or not against observation, but against data that has been aggregated over time, only enabled through digital. So two things, right? I mean, and I go back to the point around pandemic. Speed, agility was one of the key things, and it will continue to exist. So with digital, the data and the science behind the data that you see and the decision-making accuracy will overly increase. And that's what I think helped us in the case of managing large infrastructure of assets.
Okay, so I think that those are good points, right? Digitalization, transformation, and data analytics. But at the end of the day, someone needs to make that decision. You would have your talents, right? Maybe, Chow, I'll go to you, right? In terms of talents, right? Digital transformation, business in the digital age. How important is talent?
Extremely important. I agree with digital, I agree with data, but you know what, guys? It is people. It is people who makes it work. And I also have worked with clients who invest a lot of money in the system, but they don't change their mindset. So I'd rather have mindset change than just pure technology. And the mindset change is what Christy does, Wilson does, and what Rice's organization does. The thing you want to solve is, what is the pain point that your customers are facing? Your customers are the most important. I remember years ago, some people come to my house on Thursday night for meetings. And I remember it was very difficult to encourage some of the people to come, because they said, taking taxi, they don't trust the taxi system. But you remember My Taxi, which later became Grab, there's a standard, right? That even today, my daughter works late, comes back 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, there is a confidence in the e-hailing system. There was a pain point. What the organization did was find a solution. Think about the solution. And the beauty about it today is like what both of you gentlemen said. With digital, with data, you can find a better solution than before. But don't forget, back to my point, it's human beings thinking through the problems. And I'm sure, Christy, if we ask you, there must be a market opportunity came from a problem, why you came up with those products, right? So to me, it's extremely important. And the other one is also, I think I'm looking at Greg, my colleague, who's from France. I've learned a lot from him about digital transformation. It's about getting people also to embrace that change, right? You don't want to just invest and then nobody embrace that change. So I don't know how to answer you, Andrew, but to me, people is right up here. And the good news is all of us are human beings here, so we will not be replaced by robots if we change with time.
Yes, yes. So human talents, human capital is very important, right? And I, at the back, right, we're chatting with Christy, and I think the organization, the company actually provide a platform, right, in terms of having talents, underprivileged talents. Maybe you want to talk a little bit about how you use your company as a platform to actually allow that households or people to actually earn something through it.
Okay. I think just now you said something really, really good. You spoke about paradigm shift, and all bets are off. And I really feel the same way. When I started this, I had nothing. I started this business with 10,000 ringgit in my bank account. Okay, and I will have to compete with the giants, Goliath. Like all the public listed footwear and handbag companies. They got tons of money. How do I take on Goliath? So and then COVID happened, and I think COVID sort of like reset the game. It gave a small player like me a chance to be seen. Suddenly, like you said, all bets are off. And suddenly, whoever who's strongest on Instagram, TikTok, and those are So because of that, and also digital again, but this is digital advertising, also digitalization, but in terms of advertising and marketing. We don't have money for big billboards or TV ads, outdoor media, they're very expensive, but we use digital, like you say, my people use digital to create content, and we create all sorts of random content which really exploded throughout the pandemic, and that also helped us boost our sales. So what I'm trying to share with you guys today, it doesn't matter if you start with zero or you don't have any, you're not a big MNC with tons of funding. You can just make use of whatever you have, and digital seriously levels the playing field. So I think this is the message I want to share today. It levels the playing field. A small guy can really go and fight with a big guy because of digital. If you know how to use the tools, those are people very important, talent very important. How to attract talent? Anyway, we are hiring. You can apply. We are hiring. Yeah, we want young people. Old also can cannot discriminate. Young, and we don't care about background. We don't care about whatever degree you have, because I didn't study fashion. I did biotechnology, totally different. So it really, because whatever I learned today is all through internet, reading and learning, and I didn't study advertising, but we have, so we just make use of all these free digital tools, and we're hiring. We're looking for content creators. Just human. What you get a good content creator, do some random content that sometimes don't even make sense, and you get more eyeballs than a billboard on the highway. So that's the power of digital, and and then we hire a lot of we power our workforce with a lot of I like to hire people from underprivileged families, people who do not have a chance to, they didn't have a chance to study fashion design, but they wanted to be a designer. I'll hire you, or they come from very difficult background. We like to hire these kind of people because they work very, very hard to find their footing in their career. So anyway, we hire anyone now, whether you're rich or poor, but we provide your question was sorry, I really distracted. The question was
distracted by some TikTok dance. No. My question is essentially how do the company itself is a platform, right, to help different types of people from all walks of life to actually have that opportunity to grow.
Yeah. Okay. So I think one area that I seen, I have some of my employees grow is some of them, they don't have any background in digital advertising. They don't have any background in advertising. Only Form 5. Okay, only Form 5. But after work with us, we train them and we let them do what they like, basically. We let them do what we like. We don't force employees to do something that they don't like to do.
During the ting tang.
We don't care. I always tell them, do what you want as long as it's effective. We don't break the law. We don't go in jail. We don't get query. Then it's okay. Because small company is very agile, because I cannot say I'm a startup because 10 years already we're one of the very few Malaysian startup companies with no venture capital, no private equity, purely bootstrap. We grow, and we are profitable. So I think so we providing platform. So I let them if you're interested in something, we groom you and we help you get better at it and help develop skills. So I think provide. So in that sense, we give them a chance to learn things that the school don't teach, or do something that they didn't study in school. So I believe that sort of enriches and empowers them to work harder and then make more money for the company.
Very, very well said, right? And I think that is a good point, right? You provide that platform for underprivileged families, for everyone to thrive in this economy, right? And going into that, right, business for a sustainable kind of future, right? I'm looking at you, right? So now companies are now integrating sustainability into their strategy. Integrating, not greenwashing, right? I'm put it out there, right? So integrating, right? And it's very important to do that. And why does ESG or sustainability matters for businesses, and why it is so important for businesses to actually look at this part, right?
Thanks, Henry. I just want to finish off that point that Christy was talking about. I really like the passion from Christy and from Wilson, and this is the type that you kind of see from people who owns businesses, because ultimately they are driven by passion. and the ability for you to attract talent that is driven by passion will make a difference. So I think all of us has got a passion. Follow your passion, do what you think, what you want to do, and I'm sure you will get what you get, with like what Christy and Wilson is talking about. But back to the ESG point, I think with a lot of jargons, I mean, I was previously from consulting, you're with consulting, sometimes we are at fault by putting a lot of jargons on businesses and what businesses need to do. But if you take ESG, I'm sure you've read many things on jargons, from net zero to what organizations need to do to look at environment versus societal, and the SDGs, which is also another level of complexity that has been added on. Now all these are frameworks, right? But at the heart of it, I think what ESG is telling business and business owners is, how do you do businesses responsibly? And when you think about responsible businesses, gone were the days where responsible businesses are ultimately about the economic value or the profit generating entities to increase shareholder wealth. Because the definition of responsible business is now much larger, taking into account the various stakeholders that you have to face, whether it is your customers, whether it is your investors, whether it is your societal community that you interact with, or whether it's the environment, and etc., etc. So if you think about doing responsible business, it's a bit like going back to the fundamental philosophy of humanity. At the end of the day, you ask yourself, everything that you do, you got to make sure you're doing it right, and you're not creating situations that it would trigger any harm or implications to whoever the stakeholders that you interface with. So I think that's probably my kind of perspective in terms of ESG, right? I mean, and I think the act of doing responsible business beyond profit generating, but of course the balances that we have to manage between profits and other measures in ESG becomes an important one. I think in Agenta, if I can relate a little bit in terms of the asset management businesses, specifically on obviously there's a lot of dimension on the E and the S and the G. Corporate Malaysia, I think if you've looked at the ranks, are quite solid from a G perspective by virtue of what Bursa Malaysia has been pushing. But of course, getting the SMEs on top and onboarded on the G as well as on the S is probably one of the biggest challenge that we have in Corporate Malaysia today. But just touching along the E part, because of the stress that we are seeing in terms of climate change, I think the E part becomes more and more important, especially in asset-intensive industries that interacts with the environment, right? And asset-intensive industries includes anything from oil and gas, real estate, plantation, you can name it, right? And if you just kind of hone down to the businesses that we do, we don't own assets, but we manage assets for our clients, right? 30% of global emissions come from assets that are either driven by buildings or installations. You call it hospitals, or you call it properties and facilities around the world, right? Out of that 30% of global emissions that derives from this, 20% are basically from the day-to-day operations of buildings. So basically your lights, your emissions in factories by virtue of the operating of these buildings. And another 10% is by virtue of the built environment, how you build this to start with, right? So, and there are many proponents out there that talks about, green building, that talks about standards that increases the effectiveness of buildings to be more ESG centric by virtue of what it throws to the environment. For us at Agenta, I think it's more than just looking at greening and helping clients drive ESG. I think if you look at the ecosystem right now, 80% of the assets that we have built today are assets that are built in the last 10 to 20 years, which means a lot of these assets have never thought the light of day in terms of what it takes to be efficient, whether it is from an electricity standpoint or from an emission standpoint. The new assets that are coming up today are partly already incorporated and embedded in that. So the question is, what can we do to help instill, whilst the new assets are being driven in that direction, the old assets needs to transform. And these old assets needs to be transformed in a sustainable way that doesn't erode capital, but that employs basically measures that balances economic and environmental outcome. And I like to take the idea of this balance into play in ESG. I mean, a lot of people say that ESG is going to be expensive. It's going to take costs. It's going to take measures that we all of us need to invest in. Energy efficiency is one of the biggest thing in Malaysia right now. If you think about whilst we are significantly being subsidized from an electricity perspective, if you just float the electricity tariffs in an open market by virtue of what you see in other countries, that price easily will double, right? Now, because of that, the move in energy efficiency is slightly laggard, but can be enhanced in Malaysia. A lot of the opportunities that we have propagated within the ecosystem of buildings allows asset owners to basically deploy zero capital, but at the same time have companies like Agenta invest in transforming building like this into more enhanced energy efficiency. But you are able to see the 30 to 40% in your energy bills over the next 5 to 10 years. So it's self-funding, and at the end of the day, it's self-paying in terms of the ability for you to transform. The balance between economic outcomes from projects as well as the opportunity to meet sort of environmental targets becomes an important thing. And another example I will highlight is this Smart Tunnel, built many years ago, and I think this is one of the proudest things that we as Malaysia has. A lot of us think that Smart Tunnel is an ability to mitigate floods, because ultimately KL had that issue some 20 years ago. Every time there was a heavy storm, we would find floods all over KL, right? From Jalan Tukar Draman all the way to Jalan Raja Chulan, right? And that impacted significant economic activity. So we had to build the Smart Tunnel. But little that people know, the Smart Tunnel had also increased and boost the economic advantage of KL. The easiness of getting into the city, the attractive advantage of the city now has increased significantly, that it became a lot more vibrant city. So there was a significant amount of economic advantage many years later that people realized, but back then people don't realize. So the ability for projects to come together that takes into account both economic and environmental benefits are there. We just have to find this, and we can do a lot more on this.
Thank you. Thanks, Rais. Before we go into the Q&A session, right? One last question. I'll direct this to Chow, right? As we look at businesses, especially a large corporation, they're talking about sustainability. You need to go into a sustainable business model and things like that. But how does SME and MSME, right, actually adapt to this? How do they, because they are the supply chain of those big, large corporations, what do you think that they should be prioritizing or focus on?
Yeah, it's a tough question, because people tend to associate with sustainability as more cost. Been discussing with some of the government agencies to come up with guidance for the SMEs and also corporates actually, on what they can do with what they have and not necessarily incurring additional cost. So Andrew, you caught me there. It's still a journey for that. But to me, if you begin to do the right thing, like what Christy is doing, hire the right people, treat your staff well, I think those are beginning of S and E. And also to me, G is also very important. Governance. There is a bit of attack on governance in corporate Malaysia in the last couple of years. But I can tell you this, I mean, for me, after working here for 34, 35 years, there are a lot more corporates and corporate leaders who are integrity, who has the right passion and doing the right thing, and than those who are not. Those who are not, to me, are minority, and I think it's up to all of us to stand up to do the right thing. So to me, it's on the sustainability part, you're right, a bit more work needs to be done, but for the G, we can, all of us, we can stand up and make sure the right things are being done. Right policy, right governance, right decision making.
All right, thank you for that answer to that tough question. I think building up to that, I'm looking at the Q&A questions. Maybe I'll start with this, maybe to Chow as well. So talking about people are very important to organizations, right? So how did the pandemic actually affect business in terms of potentially quiet quitting, consulting clients, as well as projects?
So these are questions from the audience, and the question again is?
How did the pandemic affect business in terms of quiet quitting, right? There's a wave of quitting people, trying to resign, right? The wave of resignation, for clients as well as for projects. Right?
Yeah, it's very true. I mean, we face it in our organization. During pandemic, I think our turnover rate went up to about 30 to 40%. Normally it's about 15. So it was a challenge, 15 to 20. But I can understand. I think, number one, people have an alternative way of working, which is working from home. Another one, I also discovered myself, you don't need that much money to be happy. Yes, you know, you don't have to buy all the stuff. So I guess my view is some of our colleagues and maybe people out there have re-examined their lives and found different purposes, different passion. So I'm okay with that. But I think what I've also found talking to a lot of people is they've also found that there's more important things than just making money. And back to your point about environment and taking care. So I think it has been a challenge, and I think the challenge is still there today. But the way to address it is to make sure we engage people, we engage human beings, and make sure we address their passion and their needs, etc., etc. But to your point, Andre, it was a challenge during pandemic. It is a challenge today. In fact, I was talking to Christy, right? You were saying the biggest limiting constraint factor for you is talent, right? Yeah. So.
Yep. Yeah. And dovetailing to the next question, right? This is to Christy and Wilson, right? As a startup, how do you attract talent when you cannot pay above market rate? Who say you cannot pay above market rate? I tell you. Whoever put this question, I tell you. Yeah, maybe Christy, you want to start first, right? How do you attract talent, right?
I think for me, I use a lot of personal branding on my Instagram. I've got my own Instagram account, and I think I managed to hire some of my best people, my key people from Instagram. They actually inbox me directly and say, I really want to work with you. I've been following your Instagram for many years, company brand Instagram, and then they come inbox me in my personal Instagram and they say, I know what you're all about, I roughly know your character already, so I think I can live with you, so I think I can work for you. Yeah, I think I can tahan your perangai, so okay, I think I want to work with you. So yeah, I think personal branding helps, because you like I always share like what we do in the office, what do we do day to day, what are our challenges, what are our goals. So people who resonate with our vision and direction, they tend to have that natural affinity towards us. Vision and mission, they have this natural affinity, and then they also apply and join. So this type, right, this how we attract, like, you know, we also have like videos on TikTok. So the TikTok video, I think got close to 800,000 views.
You want to perform or not?
I can't. They're shot by my interns. Not even by me, no. My intern shoot. Okay, my intern shoot, and some of our marketing team, they shoot, content team shoot. That video, one day can get almost 1,000 resumes, because it's so crazy. Wow. Yeah. So that's how you attract talent. And not everyone works for money, like what Mr. Chow said. I mean, of course we need money lah. No money cannot lah, right? They say it's better to cry in a Mercedes than a bicycle, right? So we need to pay people enough. I mean, okay, yeah, startups pay above market rate. Actually, those with a lot of venture capital funding, they pay really, really high. But like for us, we pay above. I would say we pay competitive. But not like unicorn company payment, but because we need to be sustainable. Because we give competitive package like insurance, you know, we have got dental, medical, optical claim, all the claims we have.
Insurance from Policy Street.
Up to two. So I mean we give as much as we can, you know, all these kind of benefits. We got free like staff purchase, free bag, free shoe. People love this kind of thing. And then every year, the longer you work with us, we add more and more annual leave for you.
Wow.
So we add the annual leave, then we increase the bonusing after a certain, the more years you work with us, subject to performance, we increase your bonusing also. So we make sure, and then we give them we have a benefits list, you know, like every year you work, your annual leave add 2 days, your this one, phone allowance add, your entertainment allowance add, we do that, we have a chart. So that's sort of like, that's how you attract talent now, you know. But of course, so the personal branding, the TikTok video, we get thousands of resumes. Until cannot read finish, you know. So how to attract talent? This is the cheapest way, you know. If you pay like all the job advertising sites, we also still do that. It costs money, but if you want to go fast and loud and crazy, then you do some videos to attract. I think employer branding is very important. If you've got good employer branding, you always will have no problem. Every day got resumes coming in. So I hope I answered the question. Yep. Employer branding, yeah.
But can I just add one point? I think in summary, what you mentioned, Christy, is about treating people right. Oh, you say Instagram people look at you, can tahan your perangai, is because they understand you, or they understand the way you treat people. I think that's very important, you know.
Then, Wilson, what about you?
Well, I can't create a viral TikTok video like Christine. So for Policy Street, we resort to a couple of other avenues. Well, thanks for this discussion. It kind of allowed me to market a little bit about the company. So there are 2 points I want to make. The first point, Christine is right. Because we are a challenger, right? We are not the biggest financial institution brand out there. In order to attract great minds, great talents out there like yourself, the compensation that we offer is very attractive. And secondly, dealing with a lot of younger generation, bright minds, I think what's important is also empowerment and flexibility. And this is where Policy Street, we have unlimited leave coverage for all managers and above. And that was a benefit that the management contemplated through and through, because we were also afraid that it may open up for abuse, right? We have implemented the policy since early this year. In fact, if you were to compare the number of leaves uptake, it stays about the same, because we throw the ball back to our guys, right? Yeah, you can take leaves, unlimited, but there's also ownership, empowerment that you have to take charge for a business. And third, I think a lot of perks, flexibilities are crucial. So we also have laptop benefit, for example, for any other company, right? When I used to work in one of the largest banks in the region, the first day at work, I got a company laptop, but it is always a company laptop. So the innovation that Policy Street has done for our staff is that you join as a member of Policy Street, you get to choose a laptop of your own preference. We'll give it to you, 3,000 ringgit. You buy your laptop of choice. After 2 years, if you're still with the company, the laptop is yours. So this step actually helps us to kind of manage our asset to be better as well, rather than having another team just look into managing assets like these. We kind of, again, going back to giving empowerment back to our staff. So this is some of the tactical moves that we do. I think a lot more other companies, startups, tech firms are doing the same. But what we have done differently on my second point is that we know that today the market competition for talents, for great talents, is very fierce. It's not just about competition here in Malaysia. You are having opportunities in the region as well, right? Especially when there are stronger currencies in neighboring markets. What we are very clear in terms of the talents that we are inviting and we are reaching out to is the talents who have the same mindset, who believe in the underdog story, who believe in challenging the status quo, who believe that, look, joining an emerging company, a fast-growing company, we can make protection more inclusive. We can make impact inclusive for the underserved. And throughout the journey, we get benefited professionally, financially, and personally as well. So I spend a lot of time interviewing people, and I learn a lot in these interviews as well. And throughout the past 5 years, 6 years of running Policy Street, what I've learned that the best talents who stay with us, who grow the fastest, are the ones who share the same mindset. Thank you.
Thank you for that very good answer. Right. Now, maybe a quick one. This is a quick one to both Wilson and Christy, right? So before, when you first started off, what is the #1 driver for growth in your organization? Who want to take first? That means, what is the #1 driver when you first start off your business? What what do you focus the most for growth?
Okay, I think to me, because I'm a product company, we sell shoes and bags, so product is everything. So I realized that for e-commerce, if you want to move huge volume, you need to be of a certain price point. So it's very mathematical actually. So how do I the answer how I grow fast, right? So how to grow fast is noticing what kind of price point sell the best for product company. Yeah. For a service, if you're selling a service, you might need to think what is the right price point for the service. Okay, and then I have a really strong hero product, and I push the hero product. So that grows. That helps me to grow very fast. So if you go to, like, let's say example Family Mart, okay, you can see that they have a lot of like hero products like Oden they've got like the soft serve. So those are the hero products. So those products do very huge volume. And like if you go to IKEA, you see the curry puff is only $1. So I was looking at IKEA $1. Okay, so I'm just thinking how, and I have all this traffic, I got like millions of web traffic every month. How can I earn $1 from all these people, from these 8 million people that visitors that come to my site? So I asked myself questions like that. So I have the base. How can I earn $1 from each of them? And then the second question is, how can I double these 8 million visitors to 16 million? So you must look for right price point and right product, hero product, and scale that hero product. You put all your marketing budget to scaling that hero product that feel winners, because not every product is a winner. Like if we launch like 10 products, we may have 1 or 2 winners. The rest of it are like mediocre, some fail. So I think the answer is noticing your hero product price point and doubling that down.
Okay, Wilson, quick one.
Just make it quick, notice of the time. For Policy Street, it is about the financial metrics from day one and until today. Because it will be the financial metrics that drive more investment, that drive more partnership, that drive growth of the company. And of course, I don't believe in growing at all costs. Today you have seen a lot of tech companies out there, they get into big troubles because they believe in this mantra, growing at all costs. And as an insurtech company, with underwriting engine as well, we're even more careful because we need to look into balance sheet risk. We need to look into sustainability in the sense of business operation. So financial metrics at all sense would be very crucial for us.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, distinguished panelists. Maybe quick one before I move. I just need a quick lightning fire, rapid fire questions, right? Let me try this. Christy, pretty shoes or nice bags?
Both.
Okay lah. Wilson, where's your favorite place for holiday?
Kuching. Because that's the place where's my wife from.
Wow.
I think so. I guess she's watching online.
Okay, Rice, what's something you could eat for a week straight? A week. Makan for a week. Burgers. Wow. Ciao. Barisan apa tak no? Undi. Undi itu rahsia, but that is a prelude to the next political agenda session, right? Thank you very much, everyone.
Well done.
Thank you so much for such a wonderful session. We would like to invite Ms. Mystika Idris, President of Perdana Fellows Alumni Association, to present tokens of appreciation for our speakers and moderator.
Alright, so ladies and gentlemen, let's give a round of applause first to Mr. Chow Sang-ho, Ernst & Young ASEAN Consulting Leader. And next to Mr. Rais Imran, Chief Strategy Officer of UEM Agenta Berhad. And next to Ms. Christy Ng, founder of Christy Ng Sendirian Berhad. And next, Mr. Wilson Bay, co-founder of Policy Street. And last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, to the moderator, Mr. Andrew Lim Jungwen, Head of Change Lab Payments Network Malaysia. Alright, let's take a group photo together. I believe that it's been a very, very fun and interesting session that we had here. All right, say cheese.
Thank you so much, our speakers and our moderator.
All right, thank you so much. Please be seated.